Greetings, Barony fans. We're at the second to last class guide, with this one covering what I think is my favorite of the DLC 3 classes, the Hermit. Of all of the DLC 3 classes, I think this one is my favorite, and it's a solid contender for my favorite class in the game. Now, it is going up against Shaman and Paladin for that title, and when compared to them, I really don't know, but regardless, I really like this class. The starting inventory for the Hermit is a light but very nice one. You get a Cloak of Protection, an Amulet of Olympic Swimming, a pair of leather boots, a pipe, one exclusive weapon, the Shillelagh, one potion of Restore Magic, one bottle of booze, 3 apples, one piece of meat, and one other class exclusive item, a duck. The Hermit does also get 3 spells, those being Deep Shade, Magician's Bubble, and one class exclusive spell, Foul Form. The starting skills for the Hermit are, like many of the DLC classes, minimally spread. You get 10 Alchemy, 15 Sorcery, 40 Mysticism, 25 Stealth, and 25 Maces. These skill levels remind me a bit of the Sexton, which is weird because the Sapper is also kinda like that too. All 3 are somewhat stealthy mages that use maces, but Hermit has one more similarity in that, like the Sexton, its main magic skill is in Mysticism. Even with those similarities, however, all 3 still play completely differently than one another, with Hermit being the most unique. The signature race for the Hermit is the ever-so-sluggish Myconid. It's similar to the Dryad in the way that its most prevalent trait is a foliage mechanic, though for the Myconid it's a mushroom cap rather than a shrub like the Dryad has. It gains a growth tier when you level up, and you have a chance to gain a growth tier when you eat rotten food. If you're a short Myconid, then eating rotten food has an increased chance of giving you a growth tier, and you'll take a decent bit of knockback if you're hit from behind. The Myconid's cap gives different bonuses than the shrub. It pushes the Myconid to be a bit more of a tank, whereas the Dryad's shrub encourages it to be a mage. The cap gives up to +3 AC, physical damage resistance, increases the speed and damage of poison that you inflict, increases the frequency of spore clouds, but it lowers your movement speed by up to 30%. It's a lot more of a speed penalty than the Dryad's shrub, but it does give a lot more effects. What makes that hurt even more, though, is the fact that Myconid grows 20% less dexterity, so you're pretty much condemned to a life of geriatric speed. I guess that fits thematically with the Hermit, but that ain't gonna stop me from complaining about it. Anyway, Myconid starts with 2 spells, those being Spores and Germinate. Germinate will take 1 tier away from your cap, but it lets you plant a mushroom that emits spore clouds when enemies hit it, and when it dies, it will drop mushroom slices, as well as the occasional dust ball. It's a simple little throwable item that leaves a trail of spores when you throw it. The Spore spell isn't unique to Myconid, but it's still good to have, as I think it's basically just a better version of Thorns. While it's sustained, if you get hit, you release a cloud of spores that will poison and slow the enemy. The final thing to note about Myconid's main traits is that they are completely immune to rotten food, even more than insectoids. Insectoids will spray acid if they have to vomit, but Myconids can't vomit. Eat as much garbage as you want, and actually has a chance to give you a bit of mana regen for some time. I should also mention, just like the Dryad's foliage, if you equip an item that goes into the head slot, it will remove all tiers of growth that you have gained, so there is some major consideration to be made there. For all of the bonuses they get from their cap, Myconid has a pretty lenient table of weaknesses and resistances. They're resistant to maces and magic, while they are weak to swords and axes. As for racial relations, they are friendly with other Myconids and neutral towards humans. This also means they can go into shops without being persecuted. With all of these traits in mind, I really like the Myconid. It might be in my top 5 of Barony races. It has some very solid tank-oriented bonuses from its cap, but the movement speed penalty is very much felt for the entire game. I also really appreciate that it synergizes with poison, because it means you can have an obnoxious poison build innately built into your character. As I've done in the past few class guides, I need to explain how the Hermit's exclusive items work before we can get into how the class itself generally plays. First, let's go over the Shillelagh. This is pretty simple for an artifact tier weapon. It's an unbreakable mace that will do more damage if the enemy has any debuffs, and yes, it does stack per debuff. This synergizes with the other main exclusive item, the duck. This duck familiar will go in your offhand, but once you throw it, it'll start quacking at nearby enemies, giving them a distraction debuff. Their attention will be magnetically pulled to the duck, and they will try to kill it, but their attempts are in vain, as the duck is immortal and can take no damage. After a little bit, the duck will dash to you and return to your inventory. If you accidentally go to a new floor while the duck is out, don't worry, it will return to you on its own. The duck can also go fishing, and depending on if it is blessed or not, it has a multitude of items that it could pull up. It could give you a fish, or it could pull up a pair of boots, or, the best item of all, it could pull up an enchanted feather. The last class exclusive thing to talk about for the Hermit is the Foul Spirit spell. Using it will put your body to sleep, but you will astrally project yourself into the ghostly form of a duck. In this form, you can fly, interact with levers and buttons, push items around, and quack at enemies to distract them. It's got some pretty niche applications, and if anything, I'd say this is best used for multiplayer games to harass your friends to get to the exit, but you could still find uses for it in a single player. Alright, so now to get into how to actually use the Hermit. It's a relatively simple loop. Throw your duck at an enemy to distract them, then start wailing away with your shillelagh. Over time, as you naturally accrue more spells, some of those will be debuffs. Whenever you can, try stacking as many debuffs as possible on one enemy. It's super fun to wipe out a troll in one hit. The spells you start with give you a sort of preventative approach to avoiding damage. Rather than necessarily needing to kite, you can use a Deep Shade to hide your presence more effectively, and weirdly enough, it increases your vision in the dark. It's like a really dim light source that only helps you and hinders your enemies. Magician's Bubble lets you completely deny damage outright, as when you have a stack of it, the next attack will do no damage. At first, you'll only be able to cast one stack of the bubble, but as your sorcery and intelligence grow, you'll be able to cast more layers, meaning more consecutive denied hits. Do keep in mind, this will impact your ability to level your blocking skill, because even if you're blocking, well, the bubble will absorb the hit, not your shield, so no level for you. As I said, the majority of the gameplay loop is just trying to get access to multiple debuff spells and then spamming the shillelagh. A good combo I had was Duck, Poison, and Firewall. It denied enemies from reaching me, while I could bonk them from over the wall. There are no weapons to recommend for the Hermit, as you start with a very good weapon that will never break. As for armor, there are definitely some options. You do start with a pipe, but if you wanted to go for as many debuff options as possible, then you want to replace it with a Phantom Mask, as this will let you inflict the Disoriented effect. The head slot could be a Circlet of Mysticism, Apprentice's Hood, or the Sphinx's Casque. The torso slot should probably be a Cultist robe, but a shawl would work as well. The glove slot could be filled with either Gloves of Might or the Genie's Brace, the boot slot can be either Cleats or the Oracle's Treads, and the cloak slot can be the usual Wraith's Gown. Miscellaneous item recommendations are the same as usual: Magic Reflect amulets and cloaks, a skeleton key, and the addition of Potions of Sickness, because that right there is free poison damage, and you need debuffs. Coming down to race recommendations, there are some that work a smidgen better than others, but for the most part, this is like the Bard, where the primary gameplay loop is mostly separated from any of the race's innate traits. Firstly, I think Vampire is a decent pairing because it starts with the Bloodletting spell, which not only does a good amount of damage, but it also inflicts bleeding and slow, which, yes, I tested it, both effects from this one spell enhance your shillelagh's damage. With Vampire, you can stack 3 debuffs from the very beginning with just your Duck and Bloodletting. You'll be limited to eating blood, and water will damage you, but I feel like those are negligible things to mitigate. Incubus can work as well, but you'll be doing a lot of spell micromanagement. Incubus starts with the Arcane Mark spell, which removes an enemy's weaknesses and resistances. The best case to use this in would be if you're fighting something that's resistant to maces, so you can increase the base amount of damage you're doing to it before applying whatever debuffs you have. It's finicky, and frankly a somewhat niche scenario, but you can certainly do it. Insectoid pairs well with every class because it's just that good, but it pairs well here because it starts with Spray Acid, which is basically a poison shotgun. It's a little weird to imagine a duck befriending a giant bug, but through the power of love, anything is possible. Gremlin works too because it can get some extra mana regen through Vandalism, and it can get Grease Balls, Slot Balls, and Potions of Sickness from defacing certain objects. All of those items inflict a debuff, so I think this is an especially good race to choose. Finally, Salamander works decently well because of its Flame Breath spell. This peels away the target's resistances, and again, I tested it, this does count as a debuff for the shillelagh. You could also use the Salamander's different forms, though I think the Radiant form would be better, because the Stone form is most useful if you're a tank, and the Hermit is certainly not. In short, make fun of the Mechanist for not having an immortal son, slay the Baron within seconds, and reject the mere idea of taking damage. That's it for the Hermit class guide. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and have a good one.